Hi guys, let me make sure it worked. I'm using OBS Studio for the first time on my laptop. So let's see if that worked. Did I get a notification? Is it, hey, it's working. Let me see if I can update. Here, I'm gonna put the chat there so I can see it. Say hi when you hop on. I'm trying to update the stream info after starting it, which is probably not ideal, but I may not be able to. Okay, I'm gonna have to figure that out. Hi! Okay, so say hi in the comments when you hop on. I am going to chat about something that I have not talked about yet that I really want to. So we're going to talk about some very real stuff here. Okay. I'm getting everything set up. Bear with me. The chicks are great. The chicks are awesome. They're so funny. They are, oh my gosh. They have such personalities already. It's hilarious. But I think I've streamed outside before, but I definitely did a little bit of a better setup this time. So say hi when you come on. We're going to talk about something that's kind of heavy. But I want to talk about it. And this may start a new series for me doing live streams talking about similar topics. It's always been, I mean, we'll dive into this, but this isn't a topic that'll surprise you guys for me being interested in. But it kind of has dual interest for me. So, without staying vague any longer, we're going to talk about Gabriel Fernandez. And if you watch the documentary on Netflix, you know what went on. If you didn't, I will give a little rundown in some of the facts about the case and go over my reaction and my response and kind of how I felt about it. Yeah. So, from New Zealand, that's so cool. That's so fun. I would love to go to New Zealand. I have very high travel hopes for my life. We'll see if they pan out and I get to do much of it. I hope so. I don't know if you guys can still hear Alan inside. Either he heard a car or he heard me talking. One of the two. So, we're going to pull out some stress away for this conversation. It's necessary. So, oh, the background? Yeah, I love this spot. This has, like, grown crazily, but these right here, I love, but I don't want them growing where they're growing. So I want to figure out a way to stop them from growing here, but transplant enough to, like, my garden bed to be able to keep some around because they're beautiful. I just don't want them growing here. Bad spot to grow in. So, yeah, we have the redwood trees behind me and everything. Okay, so if you did not watch the Netflix documentary, I'll try not to go into too much of, well, feel like spoilers is kind of just gonna happen if you haven't watched the documentary. I will be honest. So far, I am planning to finish it, but I myself have only been able to make it through 3 of the episodes. Now, you get a ton of information in those first few episodes about the case, and even just those give you so much to talk about, give you so much to think about, and the details kind of just unfold as they go along. So I'm not going to focus too much on the documentary aspect of this and more on the case itself and the facts of the case. This documentary did bring this to my attention. I had never heard of this case before the documentary, which I think is one of the good sides about that type of video and movie being made, TV show, whatever format it comes in, a series on YouTube. I think it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? I've done a video about us being a society that, I'm guilty of true crime being entertainment. Like I absolutely am very interested in true crime and true crime stories, all the TV shows. I mean, Forensic Files is just so good. And I don't think that has to be a bad thing, but I do know there's some element of that kind of just becomes numbing, I guess, where you're able to hear stories and not be as shocked because you're like, well, yeah, I mean, I've heard other horrible things that humans have done, so why wouldn't that be possible? It kind of goes into a scary way of seeing it at some point, but like I said, it's a double-edged sword. You also get that more people become aware of what's going on in certain cases. And you also, there's a fly or a mosquito. You also get the furtherance of understanding and the ability to get more information on a specific case. So it's not always a bad thing. And I'm never one to say any publicity is good publicity. You guys know that. But there is a way of doing it that is, tactful versus not tactful. So all of that being said, let's talk about the case. Let's talk about Gabriel Fernandez. If you're just looking on Wikipedia, the little synopsis is Gabriel Fernandez, born February 21st, 2005, died May 24th, 2013, was an 8-year-old boy from Palmdale, California, who was abused and tortured over a period of months that ultimately ended in his fatal beating on May 22nd. His mother and her boyfriend were both charged and convicted of first-degree murder with special circumstances of torture. It does say how they were sentenced. I don't know if we want to touch on that or not. I don't feel like that's the part of this I want to focus on, so we'll hold off on that. That's not the part of this that I care about talking about, because I want to talk about everything that happened before then. I want to talk about what they did, like what happened, and I also want to talk about the system and that aspect of it, because there was a huge response from the foster care community to this case once the documentary was on Netflix. And I think very validly so, because this is something where you're like, how is this not reported? How was nothing done until it got to this point? I mean, if you watch even those first few episodes of the documentary, you see several people admit to seeing strange things, seeing signs of something being wrong and not doing anything, and easily pushing it off in their mind for whatever their personal reasons were. I don't recall how many times officers were involved, but the call to the house was not the first. Like, the call that day that he died was by no means the first attention that they got for there might be something wrong. So you're looking at caseworkers, you're looking at social workers, you're looking at family and friends that had the ability to do something, that were seeing things that they admitted were weird. And if they'd known at the time what was going on, like if they had some more detail, they may have more put two and two together. But I think it comes down to the balance you have to strike in that position with somebody that is a mandated reporter. His teacher was very concerned. Yeah. So mandated reporting is a thing. I don't actually know if this is a federal, that I can't remember if it's a federal thing or a state thing. Like, if mandated reporters are there in every state or if it's federal, I don't remember. But in California, mandated reporters are very much a thing everywhere. Like, any circumstance almost where you are in contact with a child that is not a friend or family member, I don't know of any, unless it's those two scenarios where you would not be considered a legal mandated reporter. I've been a mandated reporter, for doing camp since I was, I think the first time I really understood and heard that, I was like 13 or 14, because I was interacting with the kids. So I, even at that age, was like, if I see something, I have to say something. I don't know if it really counts for minors, so I don't think I could have, I don't think they hold you legally liable in those circumstances. I think probably 18 or over. But I did get that same information of, you have to pay attention to this, and if you see something, say something. And there's a whole process afterwards if you do see something and report it. But the trainings that you go through are intense. They basically go over every single minute little sign that you could find. And at the same time, they're trying to balance that with telling you, look, don't be detective, though. There are certain signs, I'm not going to go over all of the signs, but there are certain signs where it's that could easily happen in an isolated incident and it not mean anything else. Don't be playing detective and just trying to find things wrong. But there are legitimate concerns if you see a pattern of things popping up. Speaking of his teacher was a mandated reporter. So that holds a lot of responsibility. Social workers are obviously mandated reporters, and they also have the responsibility of investigating stuff. As a part of that system, they are connected to investigating if something is going on, investigating if something is wrong, and doing something about it properly if there is something that needs to be addressed. And the response from the foster care community was very interesting, because there was a lot of people that were just outraged at this is why I'm doing this, and the system is failing in this way. Like, I'm wanting to help those kids, and if this is what's happening, how are we supposed to do that? If, how can we do their part? How can we do our part if they're not doing their part? And then on the flip side, there was some people that were a little upset, like, at the people talking like they were so willing to take in kids, when in reality, the average 8-year-old boy in foster care is not a hot commodity, if we're being honest. Like, it is not one that is always easy to place, from what I know of the system, because everybody wants babies. And I think that has two different things you could talk about within that, but I think that's a valid call to action. I don't know if I would say that that's an excuse for not doing something. I would not say that's a valid excuse for not doing something, or not responding with outrage when this little boy could have been saved had things been done before it got to that point. So, I really found this intriguing because of that whole side of this, where it's like, why was something not done? And especially now, being certified for foster care, waiting for first placement, these are the things that I'm like, no, but just give them to me and I'll take care of them. Like, come on. It's frustrating. I think as a society, this should be a call to action to fix the foster care system in these ways. And there's a lot of things that could be addressed. This is not train your social workers better, 100%. This is also, it's an overrun system. It's an overworked, under-resourced system. And those are things that are very easily just as able to be addressed as social worker training, as getting more parents on board. And I think it's okay if somebody that's not ready to be a foster parent talks about those things personally, because I don't think everybody is equipped to be a foster parent. Not everybody would have been equipped to take care of Gabriel. Not everybody would have been equipped or able to handle walking him through that trauma that he would have been coming from. And I think you have to be honest with yourself about if you're able to handle that before you even suggest coming into the system. Because you have to know that reality of what you're getting, what you're going to be handling. And I personally, in going through, sorry, there's like mosquitoes all around my face. It's bugging me. I'm sorry. So in going through the foster care certification process, the training, they do their best to give you a very real picture of what these kids are coming from. there's a lot of baggage, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of care that they need, that yes, these kids need a lot more than just love. Yes, that is one aspect to what they need and what they need you to be able to handle. Giving them a home is one thing. Giving them food and taking care of them in that way is one thing, and that is definitely an aspect of it. But that's one side of cases, I feel like, and not even the majority, where that's the biggest thing they need, versus there's that and then a whole lot else too. You need to be able to pull resources for them. You need to be able to work through behaviors with them. You need to be able to handle them going through processing trauma and the effect and impact that will end up impacting you as well. Because them going through all of that is not an isolated situation. It is not. They're dealing with it within your family and house in this little bubble, and then they come out into your family and your house and they leave that there. That's not how that works. It's in relationship, it's in how they're living everyday life, it's in the decisions that are being made for them, that a lot gets either helped or hurt for them. And it's a lot to expect somebody to walk through that with a child. And in looking at how the foster care system could be improved so that those things don't happen, that's only one aspect of it. That's one side of what you want to make sure of, because you still have to look at, did the system catch this? And if the system didn't catch this, why didn't the system catch this? Because the biggest question in that whole scenario is, why did nobody do anything, right? Like, that's the frustrating part. Why did nobody say anything? Why did nothing get done? Why did nobody do anything? There was several people that saw signs of something being off. And I have been reading The Gift of Fear. I've talked about that book on my channel a lot. Admittedly, I have not ever actually finished this book. I've only ever made it a few chapters in, because it's, well, one, just reading in general for me lately has been, got way too much else going on. But that's a whole other side to the conversation. So there's that, and then it's a lot of information. So even those first few chapters of The Gift of Fear, though, you get such a huge picture of the need to listen to your gut, the need to listen to your natural instincts and what they're telling you, what your intuition is telling you, more than we give it credit for. And this is a circumstance where that might be something that could be improved. Because if you're looking at that as a social worker and you're like, look, I don't want to totally upheaval everything if that's not the case. And you are taught, even as a mandated reporter, so I'm sure as a social worker, you are taught not to jump on every little inkling and automatically categorize it as abuse, as neglect, as something needs to be done, right? You don't want to jump to pulling a kid out of his home. So if what they were seeing was just the tiniest part, for everybody that was, not just the social workers, but the family members too, if you're not wanting to just emotionally react and jump to that, even if your instinct is telling you, you should look into this more, there may be something wrong, like, at the least keep an eye on it, right? but you ignore it and brush it off and say, oh, that person would never do that. Or I know them better than that. Or I'm probably just exaggerating it in my head. Things like that. I can see how you would not pay attention to it. Well, not pay attention to it, but not have it raised to that level. And again, that's not listening to your intuition, right? That's your brain is sending you red flags, like something's wrong here. But you're kind of looking at it and you're not sure. And that's a big thing to jump on, especially if this is your family member. That's scary. So that's one piece of what I felt like probably happened. And then you look at like the mom, the boyfriend, their lovely personalities and their lovely issues, and how they may have been able to kind of, I don't know, do some manipulating, which is even like creepier. Just that's probably the scariest part for me. And the most interesting aspect, well, the most interesting and the hardest aspect of that to watch for me, because I still haven't finished it because it's such an emotionally, like, even just watching the first 3 episodes, talking just about the documentary now, the first 3 episodes, I couldn't watch. Like, I'm a TV show binge watcher. When I find a TV show I like, I will watch 4 or 5 episodes in a row sometimes. Like, I binge shows like crazy. I'm a binge watcher for TV. And, you know, true crime is my thing, so I would never expect that to, like, it takes it being a really intense one for me to not be able to do that with true crime. Because I watch a lot of that. Not that I'm desensitized to it to that extent, but just it's not, I don't know, I'm able to handle watching it, I guess, is all I'm trying to say with that. But each episode, I had to take a break in between. I could not handle more than 1 episode at a time because it was so heavy and so hard to watch. The most interesting and maybe hardest and like mind-blowing part of that whole thing was the 911 call, for one. The 911 call, and then comparing that to the testimony of the emergency responders, the cops, like, oh my gosh. Comparing those 2 things, you're like, okay, I'm not even an expert in any of this, and that's just insane. Like, that makes no sense. That was crazy. And then you pair that with, like, what you're seeing is the physical evidence for what happened to Gabriel. And then it gets really hard when they start looking at the mom, the boyfriend, and you're going, I'm a behavioral analyst, right? Like, I studied this stuff. I don't want to understand why they did this. I don't want to understand how they got to that. That just is disgusting to me, right? Like, that's a hard situation to be able to break through that barrier and be able to understand and in any way put yourself in their shoes, because you're like, but no. And I don't even want to try. I don't even want to try. Because that's just not okay. And I've heard that a lot from, like, the FBI profilers that I've seen interviews of. They say the same thing. They're like, the child cases are always the hardest. They are always the hardest when a kid is involved. And I think I've heard some of them say that same dilemma where they're like, 'cause that's the hardest to put yourself in their shoes with. Because you have to fathom doing awful things to a little kid, and that's just a hard barrier to break. So if you guys have any thoughts on this documentary or this case, leave it in the comments. But this was a really hard one for me. And I think the reason it had the biggest impact on me was because of the foster care system side of this. Was because of the whole question of, did the system fail this kid? Could it have saved his life and it just failed? And if so, why? What went wrong? Like, why did it get to that point when there were people that saw signs, that knew something was wrong, that knew something didn't seem right? And I just think that will always stick with me for this. And I don't know. That's just hard. So I wanted to look at some of the facts of the case too. I brought it up on Wikipedia, so I'm going to try to stick to, I don't know. Wikipedia can seem a little iffy for me because it's editable. If you didn't know that, Wikipedia can be edited. But, okay. So this next part talks about, there's a part that says controversy of governmental response. So I want to read what this says and kind of talk this through. So this is straight from the Wikipedia page. I'll put this link in the comments. This is just to that part of it. So, controversy of governmental response, right? In the months preceding his death, Fernandez showed his injuries or reported abuse to a security guard, family members, and a teacher, which led to several calls to social services to no avail. After being hit with a metal belt, he asked his teacher if it's normal to bleed. In response, his teacher called social services and was later called by social worker. They named the social worker. I don't want to talk about the names. It's on the Wikipedia site, and they name it in the documentary, but that's not important. So the social worker, she calls the social worker, informing her that she was assigned to the case. Or the social worker called her, saying she was assigned to the case. On another day, he came to class with chunks of hair missing and a lump on his lip. When questioned about it, he said his mother had punched him in his mouth. This is where it gets hard. If you're squeamish, this is where it gets hard. Because this is now going to talk about what they did to him. After having a discussion with the principal, the teacher called the social worker, having to make sure of who is who, called the social worker back and informed her of the recent signs of abuse. So she added to the initial report what she was hearing more after. And then later he reported to his teacher that he was shot in the face with a BB gun by his mother. And she once again informed social services. After Gabriel missed 13 days of school, he returned and his teacher noticed his condition had worsened. And she attempted to call her, but the call was never, attempted to call the social worker, but the social worker never returned the call. His great aunt and her husband called social services 3 times and talked to sheriffs twice regarding him and his welfare. 29 days before he died, a security guard at a Los Angeles County Welfare Office noticed extensive injuries on him, which prompted him to call 911. Overall, between 2003, so that was 2003. Wait, what? I think it means 2013. See, this is Wikipedia gets sketchy sometimes. Because it says between 2003 and, let me go back. I missed my page. Okay. Overall, between 2003 and 2012, 60 complaints were filed against his mom and her boyfriend. But he was born in 2005, so that must have been their older kids, because they did have older kids. While social workers and the sheriff's office did check on him and opened 8 independent investigations, he was never removed from the household, which ultimately ended in his death. And then the social workers and 2 supervisors were fired and charged with child abuse and falsifying public records, which is a really interesting part to this. So, that whole aspect of it, how they responded, what they could have seen, that's really hard, right? Like, especially as somebody that is now going to be a part of the system, and especially as somebody who studied psychology and understands the impact of what he went through even before his death. Like, even if his death had, or even if he had not died, if he had gotten pulled from the house beforehand and they saved him, right? Like, he had been dealing with abuse, but they got him out before that happened. That impact of whatever he experienced before that happened, it still would be there. And understanding from studying psychology what that impact would be, on top of wanting the system to work, is hard. It's really hard. And I think that's what makes this case especially hard for everyone. This is one that's going to naturally get a lot of attention because of things like that. But I think there's things that can be learned from this. And I hope they were learned. I hope they were able to take all of those court proceedings, the complaints filed, and actually do something with it. But I need to finish the series, and then I can maybe specifically talk more about the specifics of the documentary. But just in talking about the case, I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to focus more on the case than the documentary itself. Hi. So, that's, yeah. It's hard. That is one that, watching that right as we're finishing getting certified for foster care, is like such a hard thing. Because it's like, no, that's, gosh, it's hard. But, yeah. This is very sad. I haven't seen the documentary, but I recently watched Tiger King, and that's a very interesting true crime documentary. Have you watched Tiger King? I'm not laughing because what happened in Tiger King is funny. It's just Tiger King has become such a meme-driven conversation online. Like, there's so many memes about Tiger King. There's so many jokes being made about Tiger King. I feel like it's just, I don't know, it's become this very interesting thing. So I watched, oh gosh, that's another one I didn't finish. I have to finish these. I watched the first 4 episodes of Tiger King. I think I think it was right as like the fight between Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin was heightening that I stopped watching, which is like, duh, you have to watch the ending and everything. But I've watched quite a bit of it. It's so crazy that people just can't take it seriously, I guess. Yeah. It's, well, I think the biggest thing with Tiger King that people are caught up in is it's a whole different culture that it's going into, right? It's going into the culture and the world of people that own big cats, and that's not a super common thing. That's not even something I feel like that's talked about very much. So I think that aspect of it, along with the people that they're, highlighting and looking at and documenting, have a lot of personality to them. Personality that catches your attention. And I think that has to do with it more than anything. But yeah. So for Tiger King, I don't know. I guess for that, I would say there's something to be said for both sides of it. I think there's things you could say to address either side. Yeah, I don't know. That is a very, very interesting one that I don't have much perspective to put towards from personal experiences. So that's a hard one for me to speak much about. But yeah, that would be one that doing a deeper dive on it would be very interesting. In a lot of aspects, right? Because you have the crime aspect of it, and then you have just the whole world of big cats aspect of it. And even that is super controversial in legality and things like that. So there's lots of elements in that to talk about. But yeah. So I think I would love to start doing more of these types of conversations where I'm just live streaming, not videos probably, but like live streaming, talking about different true crime cases, whether it be national things or like maybe more local. I've always thought it would be really cool to do different things investigating true crime stories from like my hometown. And obviously those are going to be ones that not many people have heard of. But I've always thought that would be interesting, and I would love to like, take my camera, go out and do that. But that's a whole lot of work and time, and I don't know. I think live streaming talking about different cases would be really fun, and I might start doing that regularly. If you would like me to, leave some comments on cases you would like discussing. Discussing true crime cases, documentaries, TV shows, things like that. I would love that. Hi, Marinette. Oh, Lindsay, that would be interesting. Good. Okay. I just think it sounds super fun. I'm really into that. Like, you guys know. I'm super into that. So, yeah. I would love that. I might have to make a list of different cases I want to talk about. And then have some things like that I can pull from to talk about. So if you have any specific cases, let me know. Whether it's a current one or like going back and looking at one, I don't know, that hasn't been talked about in a while. It was really cool for me to share about, like I shared about the East Area Rapist is how I know him, because I grew up in the Sacramento area. So that was the name given to him in that area. But when the East Area Rapist was caught, why is it? Oh, there you go. The camera did something weird. When the East Area Rapist was caught, I got to do a video on that, and that was like huge for me, because not only do I love that I was able to say he was caught and justice was brought to those cases, but it felt like a very real, very relevant thing for me because it was from the area I grew up in. So, yeah. I do have a story that I planned to share for Spooktober last year when I was doing it, that I never got to. That was sharing a story that my parents had from when they thought, they're pretty certain, and just hearing more and more of the story, I am too, that they ran into him and were very close to, I don't know, possibly something going wrong. So that's a story I could share too. Yeah. I find this very interesting. I think because I'm a person that does a lot of analyzing and like thinking through, why would somebody do that? Obviously, I studied behavioral analysis, so I'm very into like, why would somebody do that? Whatever it is, whether it's, this is how you can improve habits, versus why would somebody commit that crime. It's very interesting. To me. So, okay. I'll stop rambling about that. So, leave your thoughts on this case in the comments. I think I will let you guys go for now. Thank you for hanging out with me and listening to me rant about this. It's something I'm really passionate about, just because it does feel frustrating, right? Like, it's a hard one. Yeah. I don't know. The series and just the case in general was a really hard one for me. Really hard. I just joined, so yeah. Oh, like, subscribed? Welcome. Thank you. Adoption update. There isn't one. So, we actually talked to the intake person a couple of weeks ago at our agency. And, I mean, it was a great conversation. We talked for like 20 minutes and kind of just touched base. There's still the possibility we'll get a placement at any time, but what the likelihood of getting a placement during everything going on is, I don't know. We can't really predict that. It's all kind of about what happens, and we just have to wait and see what comes. But they have our phone numbers, our emails, they know what we are open for, and hopefully we will get a call soon. Just not yet. So for the adoption side of things, that one, it's more of a long shot for our age range as it is right now to have something pop up for just straight adoption, because it is not often that you get adoption going that young. I'm like chasing the mosquitoes here. Unless it's a special circumstance, so it's not as common. So they're just older kids that are not within our age range. So we are only able, because we don't have a second bedroom set up, we're only able to take 0 to 2 right now. And really, we're kind of stuck at before a little before 2, because on their second birthday, they're supposed to have another bedroom. So that's one aspect of it. That colors everything, right? Like we're open for adoption, regular foster care, or emergency placements. And our age range still limits that though. So it's still only 0 to 2 that we can take regardless of that until we get that second bedroom set up, and then we can do older. So it's still possible. Most likely we'd get an emergency placement, probably. But it's just a wait and see still. We're in contact with them. We're still keeping in touch, and, they have our names. But just nothing yet. So I do hope it is soon. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. Yeah. So I wish I had more of an update. I don't know what's going to happen. So, we'll see. But that's kind of also why I haven't done another video, because I'm just waiting for something to actually happen. Just like a lot of the other updates I've given. So, yeah. That was good, Brooke. Thanks. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. So, like I said, if you have any specific cases you would want to talk about like this, let me know. Leave it in the comments. And I would love to start doing that. Especially as live streams. I feel like that's just a really fun live stream topic. So, that's a great idea. True crime is interesting. Have you heard of the Gypsy Rose case? No, I haven't. I will have to look that up. Let me write that down. Oh. I do think I've surface level heard a few things about this case. Not a ton of detail though. So it is still a very new case to me. So I could do some digging on that and we could do some discussion. That's a good one. I listened to a podcast about that. It's so crazy. Yeah. So I feel like this could be something very interesting where it could either be like a reaction, like I'm not going to look at any details of a case until I push live, right? And we look at the details together and I'm seeing it for the first time on the live stream. Or it could be I go do some digging, do some learning about the case, and then kind of come on, give my thoughts, we discuss. Yeah. Hi. I think that would be cool. Either one of those. And it could be a mixture too. Keep having things go off on my phone. Yeah, I think that'd be really fun. I think that'd be cool. Another kind of element of this is if I were to start doing that more, I wouldn't want to stop the videos I've been doing. So would it be I'd move this to a different platform or channel or something like that? Or do I keep it here still and just say whatever to, there being a whole lot of content for you guys between videos and live streams if I were to do that. Yeah. Things to think about. But I'm really excited because I've always wanted that. If you haven't watched The Innocence Files on Netflix, then go ahead and do so. It's a great documentary. I saw that pop up. I have not watched that yet. I'll have to check it out. I did watch one episode the other day of I Am a Killer. That was weird. That was a very real, mind-blowing experience for me. Your channel can have all the types of content. That sounds great. Just do all the things. I feel like my biggest crutch with my channel is I have so many different interests that I'm like, I want to talk about all of these different things. And there's like 8 or 9 different video series I could start from interests I have, whether it be Turner syndrome, mental health, true crime, essential oils, natural living, homesteading now is a thing I'm obsessed with on YouTube. We did also just get baby chicks, so there's that. I mean, there's so much. So there's like so many different, I feel like my content would be all over the place. But it's also like, I don't know, that's a reflection of like, I have a ton of different diverse interests. So we've also started Innocent or Guilty on A&E. Or I haven't heard about that one. I'll have to look into that. What about the TS stalker? He needs to be stopped. That's an interesting topic of discussion. I don't even know what to say about that whole situation. So I don't know what's best for me to do. Oh, Max hears Andrew coming. I'm sure you guys can hear him. Max, it's okay. Max. Oh my goodness. He's just excited Andrew's here. Anyways, I don't feel like I formed my thoughts or educated myself on that whole situation enough to speak much on it. In regards to that, is be careful. Be safe. Use common sense with how you're being safe online. Yeah. That's my biggest thing with that whole type of situation is you just need to be careful and take precautions and be aware of yeah, they could hear him calling for you. So run away.
Somebody's a little excited that I'm back. I was only gone like half an hour. Yes, I was.
Well, Alan hears you now.
No, everybody wants me.
Come here, Max. Come here.
here.
They want to see you.
Come here.
Come here. No, come here. Oh. Okay,
here.
he's running from me.
Here.
Max is a,
Come here.
why am I not
A dog.
thinking of the word now? Well, no, I know that part.
Come here.
He's, why can I not think of the word?
Almost,
Come here.
Almost. Oh, there he is.
He's half dachshund, half terrier.
There you
He's a
go.
terrier mix. That's what I was trying to think of. He's half dachshund, half terrier. Hi. Hi. Oh, and that's the cat. Hi.
Just everybody hanging out.
Max is on my knee. Ah!
What? We're helping.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So, yeah. I don't actually know what all to say about that whole thing. So, I forget the case and what the documentary was called. There was a podcast I listened to once where this dude pretended to be this family's missing son so that the family would give him money. That sounds familiar, but I don't know the name of it either. That sounds familiar, though. Sirius is rolling in the dirt. Oh my goodness. Next minute, we're all becoming investigators. I know. There's a very interesting side to looking at these things. You're like, oh, I bet I know who it is. Becomes a mystery to solve.
What? Okay, can I help?
No, Max was pretty excited, so Max might have been more excited. They said, I don't know who's more excited, Andrew or Max. Max was pretty excited.
Can we get it? No, you just go inside, check out the check.
Okay, I'm gonna let you guys go because it has been, oh gosh, it's been an hour now. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I definitely want to start doing more. So, like I said, send me your ideas if you have some. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Okay, bye.